Level 1. The man chosen for a political marriage. You do not enter the palace as a hero. You enter through the side gate before sunrise, while the stone path is still wet beneath your shoes, and the morning fog clings to the red walls. The air smells of rainwater, incense ash, horse sweat, and old wood. Somewhere beyond the inner courtyards a bell rings once, slow and hollow, and every servant around you lowers their head as if the sound itself is an order. No one tells you why you were chosen. They only dress you in ceremonial robes too fine for your hands, tie a stiff belt around your waist, and warn you not to speak unless spoken to. You are not a prince. You are not a general. Your family name carries no weight inside these walls. In the capital, men like you are usually sent to carry messages, hold doors, or disappear quietly when powerful people need silence. But today you are being taken to marry the king's daughter, the princess. You have heard her name only in whispers. Some say she is beautiful. Some say she is cursed. Some say no man who stands too close to her remains innocent for long. But what frightens you most is not the gossip. It is the soldiers. They stand along the corridor in perfect lines, armor still damp from the morning mist, hands resting near their swords. And when the palace official announces your arrival, the soldiers do not look at him. They look toward the inner hall, toward her. That is the first thing you understand before you ever see the princess's face. This wedding is not about love. It is not even about honor. It is about power. At the entrance to the wedding hall, an old female official stops you. Her voice is soft enough that only you can hear it. Whatever happens inside, she says, do not mistake silence for weakness. Then the doors open. Warm candlelight spills across the floor. Nobles fill the hall. Ministers stand with still faces. Palace women watch from behind thin curtains. At the far end, beneath a canopy of red silk, the princess waits. She does not tremble. She does not lower her eyes, and when the generals outside the hall kneel, they do not kneel toward the king. They kneel toward her. So what happens when the woman you are forced to marry is the only one in the kingdom powerful enough to command an army? Level 2. The wedding beside a silent princess. The wedding hall is too quiet for a celebration. You expected music, loud blessings, noble families pretending to smile at a marriage they had already judged. Instead, every sound feels controlled. The low beat of ceremonial drums, the soft movement of silk sleeves, the crackle of candles along the pillars, the faint clink of jade ornaments as palace women bow behind the curtains. You stand beside the princess, close enough to smell sandalwood and cold flowers woven into her wedding robe. Her veil is thin, but not thin enough for you to read her face. That makes her more frightening. The royal official reads the marriage decree. He speaks of peace, loyalty, honor, and the unity of the kingdom. The words are beautiful, but no one in the hall believes them, because no one looks at you like a groom. They look at you like a lock placed on a dangerous door. The king sits at the far end of the hall, heavy in gold and silence. Beside him, the Queen Mother watches from behind a carved screen, her fingers resting on the arm of her chair. She barely moves, but the older court ladies near her move only when she does. Then you notice the soldiers again. They should not be this close to the wedding ritual. They should be outside the ceremonial gates, but today they line the corridor, beyond the open doors. Their armor is dark beneath the lanterns. Their commander, a scarred woman with grey at her temples, keeps her eyes fixed on the princess. Not the king. The princess. When the wedding cup is brought forward, your fingers tighten around the stem. The wine is deep red, reflecting the candlelight like a small pool of blood. You are told to drink after her. But before the cup reaches your lips, the princess speaks. Not that one. Her voice is quiet, almost gentle. Still the hall freezes. The servant holding the tray turns pale. One minister lowers his eyes too quickly. The king's face remains calm, but his hand closes once around the edge of his sleeve. The princess does not explain herself. She only looks at the cup until another servant takes it away and brings a new one. The ceremony continues, but the room has changed. The nobles are no longer watching a marriage. They are watching a warning. You drink from the second cup. The wine is bitter on your tongue. When the final vow is spoken, you repeat the words you were taught. You promise loyalty to the royal house. You promise to protect the princess's honor. You promise to stand beside her in life and death. Only then does she turn her veiled face toward you. For the first time you see her eyes clearly. They are not the eyes of a woman hoping to be saved. They are the eyes of someone deciding whether you are useful. The drums sound once. The nobles bow. Outside, the soldiers strike the floor with their spears and the sound moves through your bones. The wedding is complete. You are now the princess's husband. But as she walks past you into the private corridor, she speaks without looking back. Stay close. Tonight you will learn why they chose you. And that is when you understand the ceremony was only the outer gate. The real palace begins after the wedding. Level 3. The husband. No one respects, after the ceremony, they do not take you to a bridal chamber filled with warmth. They take you to a side residence inside the princess's palace, where the lanterns burn low and the walls are too clean to feel lived in. The floor smells faintly of polished wood. A bronze incense burner sits near the window, sending a thin line of smoke into the cold evening air. Outside, servants move without speaking, their shadows passing behind paper screens like ghosts trained to obey. You are given a room beside hers, not inside hers. That is the first lesson of your marriage. You are close enough for the court to call you her husband, but far enough to remember that the title gives you nothing. No soldiers answer to you. No ministers ask for your opinion. No servants bow lower than required. Even the young guards at the corridor glance at you with the careful politeness used for someone who may rise one day, or be removed before sunrise. By nightfall, the whispers begin. He has no army. No clan worth fearing. A soft choice. A harmless husband. You hear them while standing near the garden corridor, pretending not to listen. Your wedding robe feels heavier now, less like honor and more like costume. Every thread reminds you that someone dressed you for a role you do not understand. Then you see the princess across the courtyard. She has removed the wedding veil. Under the pale lantern light, her face is calm, almost unreadable. She speaks with the scarred female commander from the ceremony, and neither woman looks like she is discussing marriage. A map case rests between them. A sealed token changes hands. The commander bows, not deeply, but with the respect of someone who follows orders because she believes in them. When the commander leaves, the princess turns and sees you watching. You lower your eyes too late. For a moment, silence stretches across the courtyard. You expect anger. A warning, maybe an order to return to your room. Instead, she walks toward you. Each step is quiet, controlled, deliberate. When she stops in front of you, the servants nearby vanish without being told. You heard them, she says. You do not pretend not to understand. Yes. And did they sound wrong? The question cuts deeper than insult. You could defend yourself. You could speak of honor, loyalty, duty, but this palace has no patience for fragile pride. No, you answer, they sounded comfortable. For the first time, something almost like interest moves behind her eyes. Good, she says. A man who knows when he is underestimated may live longer than one who demands respect too early. Then she steps closer, lowering her voice. You were not chosen because you are strong. You were chosen because no one will suspect you. Before you can answer, she places a folded strip of silk into your hand. It is light, but your fingers close around it as if it weighs more than a weapon. Tomorrow, she says, you will carry this to the eastern garden. Give it only to the woman with a white hairpin. Speak to no one else. Then she leaves you alone beneath the lanterns. You look down at the silk, hidden in your palm, and understand that your marriage has already become a message route. And in this palace, even a harmless husband can become dangerous if the right woman teaches him where to stand. Level 4. The door to her war room. The next morning, the palace treats you differently, but not with respect. Respect has weight. What you receive is caution. Servants stop speaking when you pass. Guards look at your sleeves before they look at your face, as if checking whether you are carrying another hidden message. Even the old female official who warned you at the wedding gives you only one brief glance before turning away. By midday, you are summoned to the eastern wing of the princess's palace, a part of the compound you were never shown during the ceremony. The corridors there are quieter, colder, and guarded by soldiers who do not wear ceremonial armor. Their boots are dusty. Their hands are rough. These are not palace decorations. These are people who have slept near battlefields. You are told to stand outside a pair of dark wooden doors carved with mounting clouds and iron-winged birds. Inside, voices move low and sharp around a table. You recognize the princess first, not because she speaks the loudest, but because every other voice bends around hers. Someone mentions the northern gate. Someone else speaks of grain routes, border troops, and a hostage prince held beyond the river. A man argues that the king will never allow movement before winter. A woman answers that the king no longer knows which officers still obey him. Then the room falls silent and the princess says, "Then we do not ask his permission." Your breath slows without your permission. This is not a private chamber for a royal bride. This is a war room hidden behind silk walls. A maid passes with tea, and when the door opens for one brief moment, you see enough to understand why the soldiers looked at her during the wedding. A large map covers the table. Small carved markers stand along roads and gates. A scarred female commander points to the eastern pass. 2 ministers stand with faces as pale as paper. The princess is no longer dressed in wedding red. She wears a dark robe with a narrow belt, her hair pinned high, her sleeves tied back, like someone who has no time to be admired. When the door closes again, you realize your new role is not to enter. It is to hear just enough to become useful, but not enough to feel safe. That is the cruelty of standing outside power. You are close to the decisions, but still disposable if those decisions fail. Near the window, a young guard mutters that a husband should not be placed outside such a room. The older guard beside him says nothing, but his eyes cut toward you with warning. In this palace, even pity can become an accusation. Hours pass, the smell of ink, hot tea, and oil lamps thickens in the corridor. Your legs ache from standing still. Your mind keeps returning to the silk message you delivered that morning to the woman with the white hairpin. She had not thanked you. She had only pressed her thumb against the folded silk, looked once at the princess's seal, and whispered, "So it begins." Now you know what she meant. The marriage was not the end of a negotiation, it was the beginning of a movement. At dusk the doors open. The commanders file out one by one, none of them looking surprised to see you. Last comes the princess. She pauses beside you, close enough that you can smell the faint trace of ink on her sleeve. "You heard more than a husband should," she says. You lower your head, waiting for punishment. Instead, she places a small wooden token in your palm, marked with a military seal you do not recognize. "Good. Tonight you will carry what a husband can carry without being searched." Only then do you understand the next step. You are no longer just the man beside her at the wedding. You are the door no one thinks to guard. Level 5, the messenger between palace and army. By the third night of your marriage, you learn that the palace has 2 versions of every path. There is the path seen by nobles, polished with lantern light, and guarded by men in ceremonial armor. Then there is the other path, the one behind kitchens, stables, medicine rooms, storage courtyards, and old garden walls, where servants move quickly with their eyes lowered. That is the path the princess gives you. The wooden token rests inside your sleeve, warm from your skin, heavier than it should be. You are told to leave after the evening meal, not through the front corridor. Not past the royal guards, but through a narrow passage behind the laundry court where the stone smells of damp cloth, soap water, and moss. No one calls it a secret route. In this palace, dangerous things are rarely named. A stable boy waits near the eastern gate with a plain cloak and a tired horse. He does not ask who you are. He sees the token, bows once and steps away. Outside the palace wall, the air feels colder, sharper, almost honest. For the first time since the wedding, no silk curtains separate you from the night. But freedom lasts only a few breaths. 2 riders appear from the dark road, both wearing dull armor without royal colors. One is the scarred female commander from the wedding hall. She studies you as if deciding whether you are a man or a package someone has sent. "So this is the husband," she says. "Does he know what he carries?" You keep your voice low. "Enough to know I should not open it." That answer earns the smallest nod. They take you to a hidden military storehouse beyond the outer gardens where grain sacks are stacked beside sealed weapon crates and maps are pinned under oil lamps. No banners hang there. No court music reaches that place. Only boots, ink, horse breath, and the quiet scrape of blades being checked. The commander removes the folded order from your sleeve and reads it once. Around her, officers straighten. A route is changed, a patrol is recalled, a border captain's name is crossed out with black ink. You do not know the full plan, but you know enough to feel your old life slipping farther away. When you return before dawn, the palace is still asleep, but the princess is waiting in the garden pavilion. She is alone, wrapped in a dark cloak, her hair unadorned except for one simple pin. Without the wedding veil and the watching nobles, she looks younger for half a second, then more dangerous because of it. "Did they question you?" she asks. The commander did. And she wanted to know if I understood what I carried. The princess looks toward the pond where the lanterns tremble in black water. "Do you?" You think of the storehouse, the crossed-out name, the riders leaving without sound. "I carried an order," you say. "No," she answers, "you carried proof that the army still answers me." That is when fear changes shape. Until now you feared being useless. Now you fear being necessary. A useless husband can be mocked and ignored. A necessary one can be followed, searched, questioned, or removed. The princess steps closer and takes back the wooden token, but she does not take back the danger. "From now on," she says, "people will watch you without understanding why." Her voice softens, but not enough to comfort you. That is better than being watched by people who understand everything. Before she leaves, she gives you a new message, smaller than the first, hidden inside the seam of a plain handkerchief. "At sunrise, give this to the physician's assistant. If anyone asks, you are looking for medicine for a wedding headache." You almost laugh, not because it is funny, but because the lie is so ordinary that it might save your life. As the princess disappears into the pale blue edge of morning, you understand the bargain now. She has not given you affection. She has given you access. She has not asked for love. She has asked for movement. And in a palace where every gate is guarded, a husband no one respects can pass through doors. An army cannot. Level 6, the husband who learns her real enemy. The message hidden inside the handkerchief takes you deeper than any military order has taken you before. By sunrise, you are no longer walking toward the stables or the outer gate. You are walking toward the old physician's court, a quiet wing of the palace where the air smells of dried herbs, bitter roots, candle smoke, and secrets people pretend are illnesses. The physician's assistant is a small woman with tired eyes and a white hairpin tucked low behind one ear. She does not look surprised when you ask for medicine for a wedding headache. She only takes the handkerchief, presses her fingers along the seam, and says, "Headaches are common in marriages arranged by frightened men." Then she sends you away with a wrapped packet of harmless herbs, because even a lie must look useful when carried through a corridor full of spies. You think the errand is finished. It is not. That afternoon, a servant brings you the same packet again, but heavier. Inside, beneath the dry leaves, is a narrow strip of old paper marked with names. Not troop positions this time. not border gates, family names, marriage contracts, dowries, hostages, promises made before you were old enough to understand the word kingdom. The paper leads you to the Forbidden Archive, a low building behind the ancestral hall, where records are kept under lock and dust. You are not allowed inside. That is exactly why the princess sends you there. A husband searching for proof of his new family rank looks vain, perhaps foolish. A spy would look too careful. You are learning that the safest disguise in the palace is not invisibility. It is humiliation. Inside the archive, the lamps burn weakly behind carved screens. Shelves rise around you like old trees stacked with scrolls tied in faded silk. The record keeper, an elderly court lady with ink-stained fingers, watches you without warmth. When you show the princess's token, her expression does not change, but she unlocks a drawer near the back wall. "Read quickly," she says. Men who discover why women are angry usually regret learning to read. You unroll the first record and feel the palace shift beneath your feet. The princess was promised once before, years ago, not as a bride but as a guarantee. Her name had been tied to a border treaty, then to a noble house, then to a military faction that wanted access to her soldiers without letting her command them. Every agreement treated her like a bridge men could march across. By evening, you understand the truth the wedding hid. The king did not marry her to you because you were valuable. He married her to you because you were supposed to be harmless. A weak husband could weaken her public image. A husband without allies could make her look contained. A husband no faction feared could give the court the illusion that the princess had finally been placed inside a smaller life. But the princess had accepted the marriage because she saw the same insult from the other side. If the court gave her a man no one watched closely, then they gave her a passage no one guarded well enough. When you return to her chamber, she is standing before a wall map with her sleeves tied back, a single candle burning near her hand. For the first time, she does not ask what you found. She already knows. She only asks, "Do you understand them now?" You look at the names, the contracts, the quiet violence of ink. "They were not trying to marry you," you say. "They were trying to divide you from your army." Her face remains still, but something behind her eyes hardens. "They have tried since I was 13. The room goes silent after that, not from weakness, but from all the things she refuses to say. You realize then that her coldness is not emptiness. It is discipline built over years of being priced, traded, praised, and threatened by people who called it duty. Before you leave, she gives you one more order. Not to the army this time, but to the Queen Mother's palace. A sealed greeting, a respectful request, a blade wrapped in courtesy. "Be careful," the princess says. "My grandmother does not command soldiers. She commands memory." You hide the message inside your sleeve and feel the old fear return in a new form. The princess controls the army, but she is not the highest danger in the palace. There are women here who do not need swords because they remember every debt, every birth, every shame, and every promise that can still be used as a chain. And tomorrow you will walk into the quietest palace wing to meet the woman who helped build the cage your wife is trying to break. Level 7. The night she chooses rebellion. The Queen Mother's palace is quieter than any place you have entered. Even the birds seem trained not to sing near its roof. The corridors are dim, covered in thick curtains that hold the smell of sandalwood, old medicine, and dried flowers long after their colour has faded. You deliver the princess's message with both hands lowered, exactly as instructed, while the old woman sits behind a carved screen. You cannot see her face clearly, only the outline of her sleeve, the slow movement of her fingers, and the shadow of the court ladies standing behind her like statues. She reads the message once, then she laughs softly, not because anything is funny, but because she has seen too many young people mistake movement for victory. "Tell my granddaughter," she says, "an army can open a gate. It cannot teach a throne to accept her." No threat follows. No punishment, only a sealed reply placed into your hands, warm from the old woman's palm and heavy with everything she does not say. By the time you return, rain has begun to fall across the palace roofs. It taps against tiles, runs down red pillars, and turns the courtyard stones black beneath the lanterns. The princess is waiting in her war room, not in silk, not in bridal colours, but in a dark riding robe with her sleeves tied tight and her hair pinned high. The scarred commander stands beside the map table. 3 officers wait near the door. No one speaks when you enter. You place the Queen Mother's reply on the table. The princess opens it, reads it, and for the first time since your wedding, you see anger move across her face before she forces it back into stillness. She refuses, the commander says. The princess folds the paper once, slowly. No, she warns. Then she looks at the map, at the northern gate, at the river road, at the small carved markers placed like lives waiting to be spent. That is the moment the room changes. You feel it before anyone explains it. Until now, every message, every hidden token, every night errand has felt like preparation. Now preparation ends. The princess touches one marker near the eastern barracks and moves it toward the palace road. Send them before midnight, she says. Another marker moves toward the grain storehouse. Secure this without fire. A third marker is placed near the old council gate. No blood inside the ancestral hall unless they strike first. The orders come clean, quiet, and exact. No shouting, no dramatic speech, only the sound of a woman choosing rebellion with the calm of someone who has already buried her fear. Your mouth goes dry. You understand enough now to know what these movements mean. By dawn, loyal troops will hold the outer roads. By sunrise, the ministers who plan to separate her from the army may find themselves locked inside their own houses. By the next court session, the king may still sit on the throne, but the palace will know who truly controls the gates. You are standing inside a decision that can no longer be undone. Then the princess turns to you. You can still walk away from this, she says. The room stays silent. Even the commander does not look at you. If you leave now, you will be called frightened, useless, maybe foolish, but you may live. Rain strikes the shutters harder. Your hands feel cold inside your sleeves. You think of the wedding hall, the cup she refused, the archive records, the contracts that treated her life like a road for other people's armies. And you think of every noble who smiled while building a cage and every servant who lowered their eyes because survival required it. And if I stay? You ask? The princess steps closer, her expression controlled but no longer distant. Then you are not my decoration anymore. You are my witness. A witness, not a lover, not a hero, not yet an equal, but something more dangerous than all 3. A witness can remember. A witness can speak. A witness can prove who gave the order when history tries to blame the woman who survived. You look at the map again and understand the final cruelty of her question. She's not asking whether you love her. She's asking whether you are willing to become impossible to forgive. Outside, thunder rolls over the palace. The scarred commander waits. The officers wait. The princess waits. And for the first time since they dressed you for the wedding, your answer belongs to you. Tell me where to stand, you say. The princess holds your gaze for one breath, then gives you the smallest nod. At the Western Archive. If they try to burn the records, stop them. She hands you a dark cloak and a sealed order marked with her military sign. As you take it, you realize the husband everyone mocked is about to guard the one thing more dangerous than soldiers: proof. And before the night is over, the palace will learn that the princess's wedding was never surrender. It was the first move of a rebellion. Level 8. The public husband, private weapon. By sunrise, the palace looks untouched, and that is what makes it terrifying. The same lanterns hang beneath the eaves. The same servants carry hot water through the corridors. The same ministers arrive in layered robes with faces trained into calm. But you can feel the difference in the way people avoid looking at the gates. Too many guards have changed positions. Too many noble carriages are missing from the outer court. Too many messengers walk quickly, then stop when they see soldiers wearing the princess's colours beneath plain cloaks. The rebellion has not announced itself with fire. It has entered the palace like winter entering a room, quietly until everyone begins to feel the cold. You spent the night at the Western Archive with 3 loyal guards and a single oil lamp, watching smoke rise from the ministerial quarter in the distance. Not flames, signal smoke. Controlled, deliberate, almost polite. Near dawn, 2 men tried to enter the archive with forged permission and a box of coals hidden under cloth. They expected a sleepy record keeper. They found you holding the princess's sealed order. One guard reached for his blade. You did not. You only said burning royal records before sunrise looks like guilt. That was enough to make one man run and the other kneel. Now, hours later, you stand in the throne hall beside the princess, wearing the same formal robes from your wedding, but they no longer feel like a costume. They feel like bait. The king sits on the throne, silent and pale beneath his crown. The Queen Mother watches from behind her screen. Ministers line the hall, but several spaces are empty. No one mentions why. No one asks where the missing men have gone. In this palace, silence is not absence. Silence is evidence waiting for permission. The princess stands slightly behind the king, exactly where a royal daughter should stand. Close enough to look obedient, far enough to look harmless. You stand beside her as her husband, eyes lowered, hands folded, the image of a man with no power. That is the role she needs you to play. When the First Minister steps forward and accuses her of moving troops without royal consent, the room tightens. His voice is careful, but desperation leaks through the edges. He speaks of order, tradition, danger to the realm. He does not speak of the forged papers found near the archive. He does not speak of the military contracts hidden under his family seal. He does not speak of the men who tried to burn proof before dawn. The princess lets him finish. Then she turns to you. "My husband was at the Western Archive last night," she says softly. Every eye shifts to you. For the first time, the court is forced to look at the harmless man they laughed at. You step forward, bow once, and present the sealed box of records you protected. Your hands are steady, but your heartbeat is not. The old record keeper opens the box in front of the court. One scroll, then another, then another. Names, seals, false contracts, troop payments, marriage agreements, private promises made by men who thought a princess could be surrounded, renamed and weakened. The minister's face changes before his mouth does. That is how guilt enters a room, first through the eyes. The king says nothing. The Queen Mother's screen remains still. The princess does not smile. She does not need to. By placing you in the archive, she turned her ignored husband into a witness no faction could easily dismiss. If a general accused them, they would call it military ambition. If she accused them, they would call it a daughter's rebellion. But you are different. You are the weak husband they chose themselves. Your uselessness has become your credibility. The hall understands this at the same moment you do. You are not her sword. You are not her shield. You are the plain object everyone left on the table until it became the proof that cuts them. When the accused minister is led away, no one calls it a coup. The princess lowers her head to the king and speaks of protecting the throne from disloyal servants. The words are respectful. The meaning is not. As the court bows, you feel her sleeve brush yours for one brief second. To everyone else it looks accidental. To you it feels like instruction. Stay still. Stay useful. Stay underestimated. Because now the palace no longer sees you as a joke. It sees you as the quiet space beside her where dangerous things appear. And once a court learns that a silent husband can carry evidence, protect records, and survive a night of rebellion, it begins to wonder what else he has been carrying all along. Level 9. The order to betray her. That evening, after the court has emptied and the palace has learned to fear your silence, a summons arrives from the Queen Mother's wing. It comes on pale paper, folded without decoration, carried by an elderly court lady who does not bow deeply enough to flatter you or shallowly enough to insult you. She simply says Her Majesty wishes to hear the voice of the princess's husband. Nothing in her tone suggests a request. The walk to the old palace feels longer than it should. Lanterns burn behind thick curtains. The air smells of sandalwood, bitter medicine, and dried ink. Servants here do not hurry. They move as if time belongs to the woman they serve. When you enter, the Queen Mother sits behind a carved screen, her shape still as a shadow inside amber light. You bow low, but she lets the silence stretch until your knees begin to feel the cold of the floor. Only then does she speak. My granddaughter has made the court afraid today. Her voice is dry, calm, almost kind. Fear is useful, but young people often mistake usefulness for control. A wooden box is placed before you. The court lady opens it. Inside lies an old marriage contract, a military seal, and a letter written years ago in the king's hand. You do not touch them, but you understand at once that this is not a gift. It is a knife with a handle polished by age. The Queen Mother says the princess's army was never fully hers. Some commanders swore loyalty to the royal bloodline, not to her person. Some noble families supported her only because they believed she would remain contained by marriage. And some soldiers followed her because they thought she protected the throne, not because they wanted her to bend it to her will. Every power has a story it tells about itself, the old woman says. Break the story, and even loyal men become frightened. Then she gives you the order, not loudly, not with anger. She asks you to deliver a sealed document to the scarred commander before dawn. If the commander reads it, she will believe the princess plans to replace several senior officers after securing the palace. Whether it is true does not matter. Doubt will do what swords cannot. The army will hesitate. The ministers will recover. The king will appear merciful. The princess will be forced back into obedience, alive but contained. You look down at the seal and feel your stomach turn cold. Why give this to me? You ask. Behind the screen, the Queen Mother's fingers rest on the arm of her chair. Because she trusts you now. That makes you the safest road to her defeat. For the first time, you understand the true weight of being trusted. Trust is not protection. Trust is access, and access can be used by anyone cruel enough to notice it. The Queen Mother offers you survival with no blood on your hands, at least none the world will see. If you obey, the princess loses her army before her rebellion fully becomes a new order. If you refuse, you make yourself an enemy of the oldest power in the palace. An old power does not chase. It waits, it lets doors close. Servants disappear. Food arrive late, rumors grow teeth. The old woman does not threaten your life because she does not need to. She threatens your future by showing you how many futures she has already buried. When you return to the princess's palace, dawn is still far away. Rainwater drips from the roof tiles. The corridors are empty except for guards pretending not to watch you. The sealed document sits inside your sleeve like a living thing. You find the princess in the war room, alone for once, standing before the map with one hand resting on the edge of the table. She looks tired, but not weak. That is what breaks something inside you. If she were cruel without reason, betrayal would be easier. If she were innocent, loyalty would be simple. But she is neither. She's a woman shaped by cages, now building doors with the same hands that once shook against them. She turns and sees your face before you speak. My grandmother summoned you, she says. You nod. Well, she gave me a message for the commander. And will you deliver it? Her voice does not change, but the room seems to lean toward your answer. You remove the sealed document from your sleeve and place it on the table between you. Not in her hand, not hidden, between you. If I deliver it, you say, your army begins to doubt you before sunrise. The princess looks at the seal. For 1 second, pain crosses her face so quickly another man might miss it. You do not. And if you give it to me, she asks, then I have chosen a side no one will forgive. She studies you for a long moment, and the silence is worse than any accusation. Then she reaches for a candle, lowers the document into the flame, and watches the seal blacken. "No," she says softly. "You have chosen to stop being useful to everyone." The paper curls. The old order dies without a scream. As the smoke rises, you realize you have crossed the final line. You are no longer a harmless husband, a messenger, or a witness placed where others forgot to look. You are now part of the princess's survival. The Queen Mother will know. The commander will suspect how close doubt came to entering her hands. The court will feel something shift without seeing where. And the princess, who once looked at you as a tool chosen by her enemies, now looks at you like a man who can no longer be returned to the life he had before her. Outside, the first pale colour of morning touches the palace roofs. Before the sun rises, every faction will begin counting what they still control. But you already know the truth. The most dangerous choice in the palace is not whether to betray someone. It is deciding whose future you are willing to be blamed for protecting. Level 10. The Kingmaker beside the war. Princess, by the time the sun rises, the palace no longer belongs to the people who slept inside it. The gates are still red. The roofs still shine with rain. The throne hall still smells of incense, polished wood, and cold stone. But the old order has shifted without announcing its death. Soldiers loyal to the princess stand at the outer roads. The Western Archive remains sealed. 3 ministers are confined to their family residences under the polite name of illness. The scarred commander controls the barracks. The king still sits on the throne, but everyone in the court now watches the space beside him, behind him, around him, searching for the woman who commands the army without wearing a crown. You stand beside the princess in the throne hall, close enough for the court to understand that your place has changed. You are still dressed as her husband, but the robe no longer hides you. It marks you. Yesterday, your silence made you harmless. Today, your silence makes people afraid. A minister who once laughed into his sleeve lowers his eyes before you pass. A palace official who forgot your name now remembers it too carefully. Even the servants move differently around you, not because they respect you, but because they sense the one rule that governs every palace. The person who survives closest to power is never ordinary again. The princess does not look victorious. That surprises you. You expected triumph or at least relief. Instead, she looks colder than she did at the wedding. Her expression calm, her shoulders steady, her hands folded inside her sleeves. The king reads a decree naming her temporary protector of the realm's military stability. And the words are careful, designed to make surrender sound like wisdom. The court bows, no one cheers, no one dares. The Queen Mother watches from behind her screen, unmoving, and you feel the weight of her attention settle on you, like a blade laid gently against the neck. When the court ends, the princess walks alone to the balcony above the main courtyard. You follow only after she gives the smallest nod. Below, rows of soldiers stand in disciplined silence, their armor catching the pale light. No banners move, no drums sound. The kingdom has not been conquered, it has been rearranged. The princess rests one hand on the stone railing and looks down at the army that answers her. They will call this ambition, she says. Some will call it treason. Some will call it necessary. You stand beside her, remembering the wedding cup, the hidden messages, the records, the burned order, the night rain. What do you call it? You ask. She does not answer immediately. For the first time, you see how tired she is. Not weak, not broken. Tired in the way only people become tired after spending years refusing to be owned. Survival, she says at last. Then she turns to you. But survival becomes dangerous when people start bowing to it. That is the closest she comes to confessing fear. You understand then that power has not freed her from the cage. It has only made the cage larger, more beautiful, and harder to recognize from inside. Later, in the private corridor, the scarred commander kneels and reports that the army is secure. The Queen Mother has withdrawn to her palace. The king has accepted the decree. The noble families are waiting to see whether the princess punishes quickly or forgives strategically. Every choice now becomes a message. Mercy can look weak. Cruelty can create martyrs. Delay can look wise or frightened depending on who tells the story first. The princess listens without interruption. Then she asks for your opinion. The room stills. No one expected that. Not the commander, not the court ladies, not you. You are not a general. You are not a minister. You are not royal by blood. But you protected the records. You refused the Queen Mother's trap. You became the witness who could not be easily erased. So you answer carefully. Do not punish everyone today, you say. Make the guilty wait. Fear grows best when it has time to imagine its own shape. The commander looks at you differently then. The princess does not smile, but she accepts the advice. In that moment, you feel the final door close behind you. You are no longer the man chosen because no one would suspect him. You are the man whose words can delay punishment, protect enemies, expose traitors, and shape the first story of her rule. That is not love, it is not safety, it is power of the quietest kind. That night, you return to the corridor where you first entered as a bridegroom. The lanterns burn lower now. The stone smells of rain again. Somewhere in the palace, a servant whispers your name and stops when you turn your head. You remember the man you were before the wedding. Frightened, confused, waiting for someone to explain why he had been chosen. That man thought survival meant leaving the palace alive. Now you know better. In a place like this, survival means becoming someone others must calculate before they act. The princess finds you beneath the fading lanterns. For a while neither of you speaks. There is no romantic promise, no soft ending, no simple victory. Only the two of you standing inside the life the court tried to make for you, and the dangerous future you chose instead. Finally, she says, they meant to use you to weaken me. You look toward the closed gates where soldiers now bow when you pass. They succeeded at one thing, you say. They made sure I would stand close enough to see the truth. She studies you in silence. Then she turns toward the inner palace and you walk beside her. Not ahead, not behind. Beside her. The court will call you her husband. The army will call you her witness. The Queen Mother will call you a mistake she should have corrected sooner. But deep inside the palace, behind screens and sealed doors, people will use a different name when they speak of you. The man beside the war princess. You entered the palace as a harmless groom chosen to make a powerful woman look contained. Now ministers lower their voices when they say your name. Soldiers watch your hands before they move, and the princess who controls the army asks what future you are willing to help her build. But as you walk into the heart of the palace, you understand the final price. You did not escape the game. You became one of the reasons everyone else is afraid to play it.